We're on.
We're on. Welcome to the January 24th, 2022 special meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Service Commission. To help slow down the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community, City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes or to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UForce Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage at glendaleca.gov/live, as well as on YouTube at youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when the agenda item is discussed. With that being said, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioners Alcazar?
Here.
Kalfayan?
Here.
Meek?
Here.
Wolfson is absent, and President Sardar Begid.
Here.
Report of recording secretary or clerk, posting of the agenda. The agenda for the January 24, 2022 regular meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on or before January 21st, 2022. And I apologize, it should have said special meeting. Item 2 is upcoming council agenda items.
Thank you, Chair Sardar Beg and members of the Commission. On January 25th, we have a joint meeting, City Council and Housing meeting, on a report regarding fiscal year 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan, substantial amendment for the CDBG, Emergency Solutions and Home Investment Partnership Act, to reprogram the first round of CDBG CARES Act funding in the amount of $257,000. We're asking to reprogram those funds to the Senior Nutritional Meals Program. At night, June 25th, we have 2 reports going for an update on the authorized signatory for the California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program for both 2018 and 2019 program. These are state funds that we were awarded through the California Emergency Solution and Housing grant. On February 8th, we have approval to install the Filipino American Friendship Monument adjacent to the Adult Recreation Center at Central Park. Thank you.
Next item.
Item 3, Commission staff comments.
May I ask a question? Do we have any plans for new parks or anything like that? Any plans for this 2022 in our budget?
Chair Sardar Beg and members of the Commission, Commissioner Kalfayan, we have allocated some funds through Measure S in the amount of $2 million to look for a new park location in South Glendale. We're actively looking at properties with Community Development Department to see if we can build a park, maybe have joint projects with the housing section as well as the Parks Department. As of now, we do not have any actual active new park projects that will add to the park count, but we are working on the dog park at either Lot 11 or Pelanconi. And we did have a community meeting this past Wednesday, and we will bring a report to council to commission in February to update you on the meeting.
Do we have any set funds for any new projects besides the $2 million?
For new projects, we do have some CIP projects, CIP funds for renovation of some facilities. but new facilities, we don't have any funds yet allocated. We will work on our CIP process in the next few months.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. This is Stephen Meek. I would like to thank ONIG for arranging for the Rockhaven tour for all of the commissioners to go through the Rockhaven and see it. And I think there's much potential there, but it'll take a lot of planning and time to do it. But I wanted to thank for all the arrangements you made for that. I would also like to thank the staff for setting up the meeting this past week for the dog park. A lot of good potential there also. Good feedback from people also. Several of us got to attend the T-ball grand opening in Grand Park. It was a lovely field, and it was a great opportunity to get to even chat with some of my fellow commissioners one-on-one, just to talk and get to know them. Last thing I'd like to say is that on February 5th, 4 to 6 p.m. in the Adams Square Mini Park, we are holding an artist reception for Marshall Yapo, the latest installation that is sponsored by the Arts and Culture Commission is going in there, and I'd like to invite everybody here to come to the reception. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Alcazar?
Yes, I wanted to add a few things. I second everything that Commissioner Meeks shared. Thank you to the Community Services and Parks Department for, again, organizing the ballpark opening ceremony. It was a great event. And I know a lot went on behind the scenes to have our Little Leaguers come out and to make sure that the natural turf field and fencing was ready for the ceremony, and also just some time for baseball and softball season. So thank you for that. And then as well as for organizing our tour of the Rockhaven Sanitarium, which just so the public knows is located on Honolulu Avenue in Montrose area. And I just wanted to share a little bit about, some of the things that we learned, which I wasn't aware of before the tour. But unfortunately, the public tours are closed because of COVID. And the organization who is working very hard to preserve the buildings there, they're the Friends of Rockhaven. They graciously opened their doors to us. And the design of the facility and the programming for only female residents of the sanitarium was really groundbreaking for its time. And it was one of the first mental health care facilities that moved away from prison-like isolation rooms, sort of like hospital rooms for mental health care, and really focused on a more open floor plan that connected their residents with nature. And this is especially pertinent given that during the 1920s, when the Rockhaven facility was founded, during that time, women were often wrongfully sent away to asylums for naturally occurring hormonal changes like menopause, for example. And some of the mental health care practices that they developed on those facilities are very effective to this day for mental health and convalescent care. And then not only was it founded by a woman, but it hosted a lot of famous residents. And it was actually a racially inclusive facility during a time when Glendale was considered a sundown town, which I found really fascinating. And, it was during the time when the city had both formal and informal methods of segregation against Black folks and other people of color. So all that to say, thank you again to the president of the Friends of Rockhaven, Joanna Linkhorst, and historian Mike Lawler for their decades of volunteerism and for advocating for such a historically significant place for our city. I know that the city's working with them closely to support their restoration work. And I really look forward to hearing about those updates moving forward. And until those gates are reopened to the public, if you want to learn more about Rockhaven, sign up to volunteer for their cleaning days. or to purchase something from their store to support their work, you can visit their website at friendsofrockhaven.org. And then also, thank you for hosting the dog park community meeting. I think it had a really great turnout and there was a lot of interesting conversation. I do want to ask, and maybe I missed the notice for it ahead of time, but if staff can notify us maybe a week in advance of future community meetings, not just for the dog park, but for all other park-related community meetings. I would love just a little more time to send that invite out to the community and my connections in the community. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then last thing I wanted to bring up, I sent Director Bulinikian a very last minute email. I'm sorry with some of these questions, but maybe we can have this open discussion here. So I was reviewing some of the city's various adopted reports and master plans related to community services and parks, more specifically to understand the city's commitment to how we are improving our park system, and definitely related to Commissioner Kofayan's comment, right, about how we are allocating resources to expand our park network. So I know that our city's general plan, which, so just folks know, is a document that is really a local government's blueprint for meeting a community's long-term vision for the future. It establishes policies and procedures for how the city should expend resources. And one requirement of the general plan is the open space element, which the city does have. And the last update to that, the open space and conservation element for the city was in January 1993, with a short amendment adopted in 2005. And then the city also has a recreation element, which more specifically addresses planning for our recreational land and improvement. And that last update was on April 1996, with again a short amendment for the downtown specific plan in 2006. And all of this information can be found on the city's website under the citywide plans. So my question here to the department is, I know it's been almost 30 years since these guidelines have been updated. So I was wondering if there were any plans that you're aware of the city to update some of these elements to sort of vision for the future of our city, right?
Yes, President Sardar Beg and members of the commission, Commissioner Alcazar, there have been talks about updating this plan for a number of years. Basically, it's on our to-do list, to be honest, and we have been talking to staff the last couple of months, as well as planning staff, to move forward with a study. I know we worked with LA County on a parks needs assessment, which sort of summed up on how much park space we need and how park deficient we are, especially in South Glendale. But we would need to look at working on the recreation element as well as the open space element and updating it. So let me talk to CDD, Community Development Department, and see what the next steps are. And within the next couple of months, we can come back with a report to commission, as well as look for funding to fund the study.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much for that update. I know that your department is already working on looking for sites for parks, and I think that dedicating the department and our commission to updating our plan in our city to updating our elements here would actually hopefully bring in more funding to support your research for this. So I would like to see, this agendized in a future meeting. I'm not sure if you have an idea of a timeline of when we could see that.
I would say within the next 6 months. If not sooner. There are other things that we are working on, such as larger projects, but we will go ahead and see if we can fit it before this fiscal year is over. So 5 to 6 months.
Okay, gotcha. Would there be any way to push for this potentially to move forward within the next budget year for the city, or are you thinking that it would have to be in the next year?
Depending on allocating funds for the study, we would probably
Exactly, yeah.
we would either go to council to appropriate funds this fiscal year, or we would submit a budget request, a service level increase for a study the following year. And we also have to look at funds to see what funds can pay for it, if DIF can pay for it, or if we can apply for a grant, a technical study grant through LA County Measure A. So we need to do more research, and then we'll come back to commission with the information.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
So I guess I'm the last person. First of all, thank you very, very much for Saturday's grand opening of the baseball or the t-ball field. I think that the work that was done, again, I've frequented that park often, and that field was a complete mess. So I think that you guys have, not only, perfected how, the number of holes that were on the ground and just overall, but it was beautiful. And seeing the faces on those kids and how excited they were to kind of more or less play the official first game over there was amazing. So great job on that. For me personally, I always say the more and more opportunities we give, our community and the younger kids, a chance to kind of be outdoors or get involved with some kind of recreational activities, the better it is, especially in today's world where kids are in love with this 8.5 by 11 electronic device, the device called an iPad. So I commend you on that. And with that, I also recommend, or I'd like to ask if the city could kind of do a report and give us a feedback if it's feasible to, I guess, install the basketball courts that we had at Brand Park. I know that in the last few years, a number of people have actually reached out to me asking me, how come there is no basketball court up there? It's such a perfect court, given the fact that there is that parking lot, immediately adjacent to that. So I think the space-wise, we have enough space to either install a second basketball court or even move it a little bit further away from the current location of the basketball court, put up some fencing around it, and so some kind of I guess ficus, something that would maybe possibly take away some of the noise that maybe the neighbors I could see reasonably complaining about. But if the city could kind of review that, that would be amazing.
President Sardar Brigham, members of the commission, this staff will look into it. The reason why those courts were taken down, the hoops were taken down, is there a few years ago there was unwanted activity, and the neighbors in the area wanted no basketball at that side of the park. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and come back to commission with a report. If the commission was to decide to have staff install the hoops back, I would think that we would need to have a community meeting or some sort of survey for the neighborhood in the area to see what they think of having the hoops back up. Or else I'll work with staff and Coco and his team to see if there are any other alternative locations in the park to install basketball hoops. So we'll come back to the commission within the next few months with a report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item is item 4, oral communications. We don't have any callers. Moving on to item 5, consent items. At A is approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held on November 15, 2021.
I will move the approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held in November 15.
I'll second.
Commissioners Alcazar,
Yes.
Pasayan,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes.
Wilson is absent, and President Sardarbegian.
Yes.
Item 6, action items. At A is field reservations policy. 1 is motion to approve the proposed field reservation policy to be effective July 1st, 2022.
Good afternoon, President Sardarbegian and members of the Commission. I'm Gabrielle Golia, the Senior Community Services Supervisor over the sports section. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that you can see a presentation that we've put together for you today. Okay. So today in front of you is a packet that includes a proposal, and it was attached in your packet. We are asking for a motion to approve the proposed field reservation policy to be effective on July 1st, 2022. We have drafted this policy as a formal field reservation policy for the department. It closely matches what we've already been doing. The purpose of this policy is not to change the way groups are currently receiving their field permits or change the allocation of fields and permits to these groups, but more to set the parameters in a transparent way for everybody and just formalize what we've been doing. The proposed policy parameters, it describes the intended purpose of the policy. It defines group status and prime time for hours of use. It establishes the permitting process for field use, including applying for group status and field permits. It identifies the priority and order of field permitting, and it identifies available fields for rent. So I'll start with the intended purpose of the policy. Again, we do have a limited number of sports fields available to serve the athletic needs of Glendale residents and those visiting the city. So the intent of the policy is to provide clear guidance on how we allocate our field time throughout the city to both youth and adult groups. Over the years, the number of youth and adult groups in the area has grown significantly, but the number of our fields has not increased as much. I know we just welcomed a new field, officially a new developed field into the mix this weekend. However, that's always been a grass area that's been used. So groups have been utilizing that area. It doesn't create a new grass area. It just created a new formal field. And our groups have grown at a much higher rate than the fields. It has become more difficult to prioritize which groups should get fields for their practices and games and how many hours per week they should all get. Every group requests as many nights and as many hours as they can possibly get on a field. And sadly, no one is happy with what they're allocated through the permitting process. Everyone wants more than we're able to give. So we've been working with groups for many years to be fair in allocating field time. And this process is to formalize that procedure in a comprehensive policy that, as I said before, is very transparent. And the purpose of it is to formalize how we have already been doing allocating the fields for reservations, fairly allocate the time to groups, and really base it off the number of Glendale residents that these groups cater to. So you'll see later on in the policy, we've broken it apart by local youth groups, local adult groups, non-local youth groups, and non-local adult groups so that we can make sure we're prioritizing our local people first. And on our artificial turf fields where we have significant demand, more than even our citywide fields, we're also prioritizing the youth time more heavily than adult time on the field so that we make sure we really capture our Glendale youth. So part of this policy is designating a group status to all groups that apply for a field reservation. So we have CIF high school games, approved community youth groups, local nonprofit youth groups, local youth groups, all youth groups, local nonprofit adult groups, local adult groups, and all adult groups. Group status, it will be assigned to every group based on factors that include their tax status, the age of individuals being served, resident status of those being served, and the type of play that they're conducting. For instance, recreations or clubs, competition, whether they have tryouts for their groups or whether everybody is welcome to play, all of those will play into it. So the first one is our CIF High School Games. These are high schools who participate and play in the California Interscholastic Federation, which is CIF. Schools playing games under CIF will fall under this category. Our next category is approved community youth groups. This is a pretty comprehensive group, and it's something that we've been doing for many, many years at the sports complex already, so this is not a new status. We have always had an approved community youth group policy that allowed for our local nonprofit youth groups to receive priority booking and deeply discounted fees. So this is a group that would be serving youth 17 and under. They need to be at least 75% made up of Glendale residents. They need to be a 501c3 nonprofit. This needs to be a recreational organization in nature, meaning it has open membership, everyone plays. We would like them to play a minimum of half the game or 2 of 5 innings, 2 of 4 quarters, etc. So we're looking for an organization that isn't prioritizing the ability of the children over letting kids play and have that touch time on the ball. They can have skills assessment because many of the charter organizations do require a skills assessment, but it's not a tryout. So every child who tries out or comes to these skills assessment must be placed on a team and play in all of the games that they're available for. We're looking in this status to be an organization that's chartered by a national or international organization. So the current organizations that we recognize are Little League, AYSO, Pony, USA Softball, Home Minutemen, and Babe Ruth Baseball. They can charge a one-time annual or seasonal registration or membership fee, but we're looking for an organization that's not charging a recurring quarterly or monthly fee to participate in these. And they need to be able to provide scholarships for children who cannot afford the registration fee. And games in these groups are only allowed between other teams within this group status. So Little League playing against Little League, AYSO playing against AYSO, that sort of thing. And in the approved community youth group status, we wouldn't have club teams. So travel ball, league games, private clubs, etc. Groups that are part of the status will get the deeply discounted and free fields during their season of play. They get free use of community rooms for official league use. Outside of their season of play, they would qualify for the nonprofit rates for field rentals. And really the only thing changing from what we're already doing to what we're proposing in this is that we have not required a charter prior to this. It's been an unofficial portion of that, but we are adding the charter being required. We currently have 10 approved community youth groups. Under this policy, if approved, there would be 9 groups. So one group is actually a private club that has been receiving approved community youth group status, and they would be moving into the local nonprofit group. So the other types of youth groups, because they're a little easier to understand, we didn't spell it out quite as broadly. We have a local nonprofit youth group. So this is a group serving kids ages 17 years old and under, at least 60% Glendale residents, and a nonprofit. A local youth group is basically the same thing, except they're not nonprofit. And then all youth groups would be any other youth group that doesn't fall in. So this might be camps, non-local clubs, travel ball, that sort of thing that isn't a local team. Currently in the local youth groups, so we're talking both the local nonprofit and local youth group combined, We have about 5 to 6 local youth soccer clubs. Most of these are teams that are involved in the Coast Soccer League. And we have currently about 3 to 4 local baseball groups, and most of these are travel ball. In the all youth group category, we have about 10 soccer groups that rent our fields and approximately 5 baseball groups. So then there's our types of adult groups. So similar to the youth, we have the same breakout for adult groups. We have local nonprofit adult groups, local adult groups, and then all adult groups. Right now, we currently have approximately 6 local adult groups. Most of these are stemming from local churches, local work groups, and parents of AYSO kids who play in our Glendale Women's Soccer League and Adult Soccer League. There's no baseball groups that fall into the local adult groups right now. And then for all adult groups, we have approximately 3 to 4 soccer groups that rent fields right now, and about 4 to 5 baseball groups that fall into the all adult groups category. So we do have an application, a group status application process proposed with this policy. We currently issue permits quarterly, and we do plan on continuing that. So we issue permits for January through March, April through June, July through September, and October through December. So for the staff to process permits and do them in 3-month batches. We are proposing that the application for a group status is a 6-month, every 6 months we require groups to reapply. So the first 2 weeks of October, they'll be reapplying for group status for the first and second quarter permits. And then from April 1st to 15th, they'll be applying to receive status for the third and fourth quarter permits. We want to do it 2 times per year to allow groups to change status if they qualify for it, or if they grow and change, if they get more Glendale youth in, maybe they go from an all youth group to a Glendale youth group, something like that. But it doesn't make it a constant process because it is a pretty arduous process for staff to be accepting these applications and reviewing the rosters. As part of their application, each group must submit an application form, their nonprofit status paperwork, so a 501c3 documentation, a letter from the IRS, their most current season of rosters. If it's for a club, then it would be the last month. If it's for an approved community youth group, it would be the last season of play. This needs to include the date of birth and the zip code address of all players. So the city will reserve the right to verify residency by requesting a utility bill from a selection of players so that we can make sure they really are Glendale youth. And then groups must provide proof of insurance. We will require insurance from any formal group. If it's an informal group, like a church group, a work group, that sort of thing, and they don't have insurance, just like we've always done, we will allow them to sign a release of liability form. But formal clubs must have the insurance. And anyone who misses that category, that application process category, or doesn't submit an application will automatically qualify in the all youth group or all adult group category. So they'll still get permits. They just may not get the priority permitting. So our sports seasons of play, I think I mentioned with the approved community youth groups that we have designated seasons of play for these groups. So baseball season of play is February 1st through July 31st. Softball is the same. Soccer is August 1st through January 31st, and lacrosse is February 1st through May 31st. So if a group is designated as an approved community youth group, they will receive priority permitting and the deeper discounts on the fields rental time during their season of play. So that's these months. Now we get to the fun part, the priority order. So how we'll take all of these groups and figure out who gets what. So because we do have some adult groups that are local as well as many youth groups, we are proposing that adults receive 20% of the prime time, while youth gets 80%. That way we still hold a little bit of time for the adult groups, make sure that they are getting something, but we are giving that heavy priority to the youth groups in Glendale and to youth in general. So our prime time is being defined as weekdays from 6 to 10 p.m. So that's that after work evening hours that everybody wants. And weekends from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that's on our artificial turf fields, that equals about 44 hours of prime time available each week per artificial turf field. The artificial turf fields are open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, so there is about 105 available hours for use, but most of these youth groups prefer, most groups in general prefer the evening hours. So for the 20% of prime time allocated to adults that we're proposing, it equates to approximately 8.5 hours of field time allocated to adults, or prioritized to adults, I should say, per field per week. And then it equates to approximately 35.5 hours of field time allocated to youth, and that's per field per week. So for the 20% prioritized to adult groups, we would start with city activities and programs, and this is inclusive of any agreements approved by City Council. Then we would go to local nonprofit adult groups and local adult groups. Those two get grouped together because they're all local. The difference between the nonprofit and the regular local is just the fees that they're charged. Then all adult groups would get a chance. Then we'd roll down into youth groups. So youth groups, per the prioritization you'll see below in the 80% for youth groups, we'll go through those. So it would first be then youth city activities and programs, CIF high school games, in-season approved community youth groups, local nonprofit youth groups and local youth groups, all youth groups, and then first come, first serve for any remaining time. So that's the 20% for adult groups, and then for the other 80% of the prime time for youth, it would be that same order that I just went over for youth groups. For non-prime time, so outside of that 6 to 10 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekends on the artificial turf fields, we would first offer time to city activities and programs, CIF high school games, in-season approved community youth groups, then the local nonprofit youth groups and local youth groups, then go into the local adult group categories, all youth groups, all adult groups, and then first come, first serve. And it's that same order. I won't read it all through again. It's the same order for our natural fields. So this is for the citywide softball and baseball fields, and field 2 and 3 at the complex, as well as Pacific Ball Field. And so that you can see, these are all of the fields that we have in alphabetical order. There is a second page. And it describes the field, the type of sport field that it is, and what sports we allowed to be played on it. As you can see, many of our fields, like Babe Herman Ball Field, for instance, it is a baseball field, but we'll also put youth soccer out there. So these are shared use fields. We do have 20 developed fields in Glendale now. It was 19 developed and now 20 with the brand T-ball field. We do rent 19 of these fields out. One of the fields, Stengel, is under an MOU with GUSD, and they handle all the maintenance and rentals on that field. So we really rent out 19 of the fields in Glendale. 16 are ball fields of various sizes. 2 are artificial turf soccer fields. 1 is an artificial turf multi-field. And these are the remainder of the fields in alphabetical order in Glendale. And that really is the extent of the presentation, but I know there was a lot of information in there, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any times that you don't fill up? It seems like there's so many people asking for this. Are there fields in constant use?
President Sardarbegian and members of the commission, Commissioner Meek, weekdays prior to 4 p.m. are generally available. Weekend evenings between 8 to 10 p.m. are hit or miss. We do have some adult groups that like to use them, but they're not as heavily used. The artificial turf soccer fields in particular are used and rented usually approximately 363 days of the year. I would say Christmas Day and New Year's Day, we don't have renters. But the rest of the time we do have a wait list for time.
Can I ask a clarification question, Gabrielle? Thank you so much for presenting all of that information. We are deciding on approving the field reservation policy specifically, not the approved community youth group criteria that is also attached to this agenda. Is that right? Or are they both up for discussion?
President Sardorbegi and members of the commission, yes. The exhibit 1 that was attached to your packet was the previous approved community youth group policy. So that is not a packet that is being approved today. That is the old policy that the department has been using. So what you're approving today is only exhibit 2, or what you're considering today is only exhibit 2, which is the field reservation policy. It is inclusive of approved community youth group information, but it is not that exhibit 1 that I think you're referring to.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. I did have comments on both, but for the sake of the meeting, I will only comment on the field reservation policy. I did see some discrepancy with what is in the application and then as a requirement for the approved community youth group status. So again, in the application and then what is in the reservation policy. So I think in the policy, it says 75% of their membership rate has to be Glendale residents, whereas in the application, it says 60%. Requirement was a nonprofit status for this group specifically, and in the application, it does not specify that in the criteria. Also, the offering scholarships is not in the application, as well as the requirement to be a chartership by a national organization, I think. Just to probably have to update that application in the future.
If you don't mind, I want to just make sure so that it's very clear that application was the previous approved community youth group application and is not the new current one. So those definitely will be updated as part of this. It will no longer be an approved community youth group application. It will be a group status application as a whole, so that groups are applying for any one of the group statuses that we have listed in the policy. And I apologize for the confusion. I can see how attaching that made it seem like that was the application, and it isn't the new current application.
Okay, gotcha. So will those applications be presented to us in a future meeting for approval, or is that internal to the department?
President Sardorbegi and members of the commission, I believe that it would just be an internal application, since the policy itself spells out what all of those would be. If you desire to see them, we can certainly bring them back or send them to you, but they will be public documents that would follow this policy if approved.
Okay. Like I said, I did have some comments on the, well, at least for the approved community youth group status criteria. I could just send you some notes if that will suffice, unless the other commissioners want to have that conversation in our monthly meeting.
President Sardorbegi and members of the commission, Commissioner Alcazar, just to be clear and make sure, I think the fact that we attached the old approved community youth group policy to the report, it may have caused some confusion. So that's the old policy that had been adopted by the commission many years ago. We just kind of wanted you to see what the department was working off of as far as written policy for approved community youth group. That will no longer essentially be of value once the field reservation policy is adopted. So whatever is in the sports field reservation policy as defined for approved community youth group, based on today's commission's feedback and approval, that will be the guiding document. So the approved community youth group definition will be as proposed in the sports field reservation policy, and we will no longer refer to the other document. So if there's anything in the other document that you would like us to consider and you would like commission to give us feedback on to include in the new policy going forward, we're happy to take that feedback and incorporate it. But just wanted to be clear that that exhibit 1, which is the approved community youth group, along with the application packet, will no longer be used or referred to, because the sports field reservation policy will be the guiding document going forward.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that. So in that case, there are specific criteria that are in the application as well that are not mentioned in this policy update, such as, sorry, I'm pulling up the attachment. So group criteria for at least specifically approved community youth groups, sports groups, that the membership must not be restricted by voting procedure or by religion, race, ethnic origin, social or economic status, or gender. So that information is not in the policy. So if the policy is the primary document specifying what criteria should be used to select our group statuses moving forward, I definitely think that anti-discrimination policy should be included in it as well. And I would like to also add to that that they may not be able to restrict or discriminate against disability, as well as sexual orientation and citizenship. That information is not in the attachment as well.
Megan and members of the commission, absolutely. I understand and I know exactly what you're referring to that was in the previous approved community youth group policy, and we can definitely pass those on to the approved community youth group policy that the new policy that includes all youth groups. Those are certainly things that for the deeply discounted and prioritized time, those groups should have those criteria listed.
Great,
and
thank you.
the groups currently have that. I want to mention that all of the groups that we currently work with, I know that they do have those policies in place, and they have special programs for children with special needs and anti-discrimination policies. So adding that in won't change any of the existing approved community youth groups.
Great. And then my last comment that could potentially be added to the policy would be to add sort of a disclaimer item that says the city has the right to terminate any field reservation or permit if a group does not maintain eligibility for their group status. Then maybe I think the attorneys should probably work on that statement, but.
Absolutely. We will work with, run it by our legal department and add some clause in there that allows us to cancel for any reason if they don't meet the criteria or don't continue to meet it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm ready to move it if there's no other question.
I actually have a question or comment. Is there any, I guess, a portal or whatnot that allows, club managers or whatever we want, organization managers, to kind of go in there and see any open spots, like just a live calendar? And on top of that, do we have any, I guess, policies in place where, let's just say organization A has a certain space Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 4 to 8, but they're constantly either canceling it or just not using it? Because I think in the eye of the public, sometimes what happens is you might drive by, you see a field open and you're like, wait, that's an open field. Why is it not being used? So have you guys considered anything where if a certain amount of cancellations happen, someone loses the spot automatically and it goes to the next organization or whatnot? Because I think that again, in two senses. One, it allows the other organizations to fill any gaps that they might have. But B, aside from that, from a public standpoint, if a field is open, they don't think of that as a wasted, resource of the cities. It's automatically being used or recycled to some other organization or another group of kids.
President Sardabagian, absolutely. There's, to address both parts of your question, with regards to posting schedules online, we have debated this internally many times, and we've gone back and forth on it. And for the purpose of field reservations, we have shied away from posting that calendar online because what we end up seeing is what we call pirate groups. Someone sees that it's available in the calendar and they go hop out there and use it. And then we have conflicts when we actually do permit someone at the last minute to go and use that field. And we end up with conflicts out of the field where someone says, well, I know it's available. And we have a new permitted or recently permitted group that shows up and their permitted is in hand, but the group that got there first thinking it was available is now refusing to leave. So for that reason, we have shied away from it, but we do always make the available fields known to groups when they call in to us. We also try to shy away from that a little bit because many of our groups prefer that only the president or owner of the organization make the reservations. And that's for both payment purposes and also for liability. Because we do get coaches, some of these organizations are very large and they have many coaches under them for different age groups and different teams, different locales. And they'll have a coach show up, but it's not actually a sanctioned event as part of that team's insurance. And then we end up with a liability situation. So we try not to post that so that we force the president or the owners of the organization to come through our office and actually get the permit themselves. So that's the reason why we don't post it. For the groups that are abusing their permitted times, either holding it hostage and not actually using it or canceling regularly. It's twofold. If they're a paying group that is canceling on a consistent basis, we do have an approved fee to charge them a cancellation fee so that we can try and tighten up on that and prevent them from canceling all the time and actually only book what they need so that they're not holding time hostage from other groups and then releasing it at the last second, because we know that happens sometimes. And then for our approved community youth groups, like let's say AYSO, giant organization that has permits for all of our fields, and we find that, they're not actually using this one particular field on a weekly basis. We rely somewhat on the calls that we get from the public saying, hey, I've seen it sitting empty. And then we always reach out to our big organization that holds the permit time and say, we're seeing or we're receiving feedback that field is sitting empty. So we need to know if you're actually going to use it. And if you're not, we would like you to release that time. And we will then give it to the next group on the wait list. And we also send staff out to try and patrol. It's a lot of fields, 20 fields, but we do our best to drive around on a nightly basis and just see that the groups are actually using what they've permitted to use so that we can hold them accountable for it. And it's both for the eye of the public and someone driving by and seeing an empty field. It's also for the electricity to make sure lights aren't being left on a field that nobody is using and spending the money on the electricity. And also to catch if there's pirate groups that have hopped out there that they're not supposed to be there, because if we have an empty field and we have a wait list, we certainly want to give it to the wait list, and especially with this policy in the order that they should be getting it per the policy.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one last question, and I do want to know you added some sort of policies that you do internally already with the cancellation, right? So everything you just said, definitely add that to this policy document. So from my understanding, the prioritization is by the group status, the season of the sport, and then there's also prioritization for returning organizations. Is that right?
Yes, President Sardabagian and members of the commission. So the way we look at it is there's a first right of refusal. So each quarter we look at the groups that had it before and make sure that they are still falling in that prioritization in the youth group status prioritization. And then for new groups or groups that want more time, anything that's become available either because a group isn't using it or it wasn't an adult group, but it's prioritized, or it was an adult group, but it was prioritized for youth time, then we'd offer it to the youth first. But that first right of refusal is more for a group, let's say, a local club group that practices every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. If they've had that time ongoing, then we're going to let them be the first pick for that time again, as long as they're still an approved community youth group or a club group in that status. That way their parents aren't penalized and aren't shifting around constantly as well. So we're trying to balance giving these groups time with also making sure their families have some consistency, because we know that those parents need to know that their practice is going to stay on Mondays, because if it shifts around, that group's going to fall apart. They can't maintain that. So we're looking at both.
Gotcha. I just want to ask from your experience if that could potentially or has prevented sort of smaller or newer local organizations from actually securing reservations, since we're, prioritizing our larger AYSO and charter groups. And I know we can't provide space for everyone. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely, it's a great question. When it comes to our approved community youth groups getting priority, that's always happened. So AYSO, for instance, is our beast of an organization. They have between 3,000 and 4,000 kids in Glendale that are part of it. So during their main season of play, absolutely, it's hard for a smaller group to get in. It's hard for our bigger club groups to get in. Everybody kind of loses time, including adults. Everyone takes a step back for AYSO. But we've always been able to find time for newer, smaller groups come springtime when AYSO isn't playing. And that's where that first right of refusal helps those new growing groups, is that, if in the first quarter of the year we're able to squeeze them in come second quarter, they'll be given that first right of refusal on time. And they'll have been able to grow their numbers during that time, and they may now qualify and move up in priority status. So, hello, kitty. They've always been prioritized in a way and given that first right to be able to grow. And so far, we have not seen groups that are dedicated to continuing not be able to find time. It may not be the exact time that they want. Everybody comes in wanting weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. and we just only have so many fields to go around from 6 to 8 p.m. on a weeknight. So that's hard. But if a group is flexible and willing to take a different time at first to get their foot in the door and start then growing their numbers, then they've always been able to.
That's great to hear. And it sounds like you're working hard to try to accommodate as many groups as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
President Sardarbegian and Commissioner Kalfayan had made a motion. If there is a second, I can proceed with roll call.
I can second.
Thank you. Commissioners Alcazar,
Yes.
Kalfayan,
Yes.
Meek, Meek, Commissioner Meek.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Commissioner Wolfson is absent, and President Sardarbegian.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item 7, reports information only at A, Recreation and Community Services section, monthly activity report for November and December 2021.
Good afternoon, President Sardarbegian, members of the Commission, city staff. My name is Sabat Garabedian, Senior Community Services Supervisor with the department responsible primarily for our community centers and the programming out of those facilities. So I'm going to go over our November and December activities and talk about some upcoming events. Give me a moment while I share the screen. Okay. And I'm assuming everybody could see.
Yes.
So with regards to COVID-19, what's open, what's closed, there hasn't been much changes in terms of our image from November. Senior Congregate Meals Program at ARC is still closed, and we're doing home delivered or in-person pickups. Senior exercise classes are still being offered virtually. Our drop-in table tennis is not at the Adult Recreation Center. We've actually moved that to Pacific Community Center. The senior mixer at the Adult Recreation Center is not taking place. We moved that to Pacific Community Center as well. Tot time at our community centers are still not taking place due to the nature of that program. Bunch of 5 and younger kids crawling, touching toys. There's no way to maintain sanitation with regards to that program. And indoor youth drop-in team sports, such as basketball, are still closed to the general public, given the indoor mask ordinance requirement and the mandatory weekly testing for youth sports. So moving on December 3, we had our holiday tree lighting ceremony at City Hall in Barcher Plaza. There were approximately 150 people in attendance watching the mayor light up the tree. They had an opportunity to drink some hot chocolate and enjoy live entertainment by Luna Dance LA and the Armenian Cultural Association's Hamas Kainaidian Youth Choir performance. In addition, attendees had the opportunity to take a picture with the Santa Claus and receive an advent calendar. During the holidays, we had a bunch of senior programs and activities take place. Each year, the City of Glendale employees help make the holiday season special for our city's most vulnerable population with the coordination of a Thanksgiving food drive. Last year was the first year, or 2020, we started organizing a Thanksgiving food drive-through event where city staff drove by the Adult Recreation Center and dropped off their donations. In total, these donations amounted to 200 food bags being delivered to seniors throughout Glendale. Next, some of the staff from LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger's office participated in a Day of Giving event the day before Thanksgiving. Their staff visited the Adult Recreation Center, and this was their second year in a row that they've been doing this, and helping prepare the lunches, bagging them, and handing them out to the EMP program participants. This year also, with the help of Glendale Sunrise Rotary, Senior Services Unit partner with the Rotary to deliver hot Thanksgiving meals prepared by Mimi's Cafe on Thanksgiving Day to 25 homebound seniors. And lastly, each year, in partnership with Homestead Senior Care, Senior Services Unit provides 20 seniors with gifts who are experiencing personal and financial difficulties. This year, the department staff took on the role of Santa, created an Amazon wish list account, and asked people to donate their items and have it shipped directly to our staff at the facility. And our staff wrapped those gifts and delivered it to the seniors during their meal delivery. About 50 seniors were served through that program. The department continued operating its childcare programs. On November 19, we had Parents Night Out. November 22 to 24, we had Thanksgiving Camp at Pacific Community Center. On December 19, we had Parents Day Out. And December 20 through January 7, we operated Winter Break Camp at Pacific Community Center and Spar Heights Community Center. On December 4th, our Trails and Open Space program hosted 35 One Glendale participants in their seasonal Go program at Brand Park. And on December 8th, the Canadian Wilderness Park hosted 55 eighth graders from Shamalan Armenian School for their day of service. And they had a mini work day watering trees, clearing and cutting shrubs, and weeding the motorway. During the month of November and December, our STAR program continuously met in person. They did various activities and had their presentations and celebrated the season from Dia de Muertos to Thanksgiving to the holidays. Our Youth and Family Services section staff also carried out 6 Teen Night Out events at Maple Park Community Center and Pacific Community Center during the months of November and December. They also had 2 presentations. One was about what's happening at Glendale College, and 2 speakers presented about the facts about drugs and substance abuse. We had 2 Maple all-inclusive play days take place on November 20 and on December 18. The program is an opportunity to gather all children around the Shane's Inspiration all-inclusive playground at Maple Park and use the universal language of play to be able to have these kids interact and mingle and socialize. The program averages about 12 to 15 participants at our canopy, where we have additional arts and crafts. While there's more people present in the park and on the playground, we were getting about 12 to 15 people actually come and approach our staff and participate in the crafts we have available on that day. Our therapeutic recreation program staff also organized 2 holiday dinners, one for Thanksgiving and one for Christmas. On Thanksgiving, we served Dinah's chicken to our therapeutic rec participants, and closer to December, we served honey baked ham to our participants. Our senior nutritional meals program numbers for the month of December, staff was averaging 10,578 meals per month in the altered congregate meals program, and of about 1,200 meals per month for the traditional home delivered meals program, both of which are shut down for in-person activities until the pandemic allows us to reopen. And now for some upcoming events. On Friday, February 4, from 3 to 5 p.m., Pacific Community Center will be hosting a mobile vaccine clinic for anyone ages 5 and older who is eligible for a vaccine. The clinic is Pfizer or Moderna, first shot, second shot, third shot, or booster dose for anybody that is eligible to take those shots. It's totally free. People need to register online and make a reservation prior to showing up in person. Parking will be available on Kenilworth. As of right now, the event's scheduled to be outdoors, but in the event of inclement weather, the facility will be able to accommodate the event indoors. Registration for our spring break camp starts February 10. Spring break camp will be offered from March 14 to 18, 2022 at 2 locations, Pacific Community Center and Spar Heights Community Center. Pacific Community Center will be a full day offering, while Spar Heights Community Center will be a half day, noon to 6 p.m. offering. Next, mark your calendars for Saturday, March 19, 2022. It's going to be our grand opening of the Storm Bar Nature Center. Finally, it's been a long time coming, and we're happy to be able to do the official grand opening and show off the inside of that facility. The time is yet to be determined, and we will update all of you once we have our flyer and agenda set up for that day. And last but not least, our Cesar Chavez commemorative event at Pacific Community Center will take place on Saturday, March 26th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. The event will feature carnival games, Glendale Rocks climbing wall, and live entertainment. And that concludes my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Anyone have any comments or questions?
Not at this time. Thank you. That's great.
If only I could stop sharing my screen.
There you go.
Okay, next item is 7B, Park Services Section Monthly Activity Report for October and November 2021.
Thank you, Iris. Good afternoon, President Sardarbegian, members of Commission. The report highlights October and November work orders. In October, our crews completed 824 work orders, of which 800 were completed by groundskeepers. There were 2 work orders completed on passive application, and then 22 by irrigation repair crew. A total of approximately 1,200 labor hours incorporated. In the month of November, I completed 754 work orders, of which 726 were completed by groundskeepers, 1 application and for pesticides, and 27 completed work orders by irrigation work. and that concluded about 1,150 labor hours. Today, we actually would like to share with you also some of highlights, pictures of the project we have completed the past couple of months. And let's get. Is this visible?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. First, we wanted to touch on some challenges we experienced from the December rains. December, as you know, we had several rainy days, which is great for us. And the water table goes up, our landscape, we turn off the irrigations and benefit from rainy days. Yet, it does have its challenges it brings forth. We experienced some erosion and rock slides at a couple of our facilities trails. First one was the Catalina Verdugo Trail, which is the trail that goes above the sports complex. Our hikers reported this to us, which we appreciate. This is the north, and it had two spots that erosion had occurred. So immediately after getting notification, we sent staff out, and we determined that these were fairly minimal, and we're able to just clear them and make the paths available for our trail and hikers for the area. So that was completed within the first day of the reporting, and we were able to make those trails back, open them up back for our community. We experienced something a little more severe over on the Brand motorway, which is north of our Brand Park. This one required closures. As you can see, some of these boulders are significant in size that have come down. And there's several pictures at more than 2-3 locations that have similar rocks that came down and erosion. And here's some of them that we'd like to share with you. And as we continue looking at what had come down, we also wanted to start looking at what's above, where it came from, what else might be loosened up, what else could come down and cause some havoc and damage and make the area dangerous. So we also realized, if you see the picture on the right, people had already started making their own trails kind of using the very side of the hillside, which makes it very dangerous. That could just collapse and people can fall. Having evaluated the current conditions and what may eventually be more erosion, we decided at this time to safely close these locations and discuss the situation with our public works engineering and fire departments. And we requested them to go evaluate these areas, evaluate, like you see the picture on the right, those rocks. Are they going to be stable? Are they going to continue to come down? We really definitely don't want anybody getting injured. The decision we came to, the conclusion at the time is, let us close the Brand motorway from both directions, keep those areas safe and away from the public use until we determine its safety and what needs to be done to open them up for the public again. Civic Auditorium, we did some landscape enhancements, mostly the trees and some of the shrubbery. As you can imagine, our palm trees, they do grow and the palm fronds need to be removed. So staff went in with the boom trucks, got them all cleared up, beautified the entrance locations on both sides of the auditorium. This is the parking garage, right in front of the parking garage, as well as some landscaping that overgrows. This is in the parking lot area south of the Civic Auditorium, and staff went in, cleared it out, assisting the section crews by eliminating some of the overgrown shrubs and clearing the areas to make it more presentable as what our standards would be. And this is the entrance to the customer service from the north side of the Civic Auditorium. Both sides staff went in and cleared up to give it the presentation that it needs to be. We renovated a number of ball fields. Not only do we construct the Brand ball field, on an annual basis, we select 2 to 3 ball fields that we do full enhancement. And then we also take every infield, close them down for the summer, and we give it what I call the TLC. And the TLC is, in short-term, tender loving care. We go in, we do the aeration, we add some fertilizer, we add some seed, we put the topping, and let it rest to allow germination of the seeds during those times. And if there's any reservations on the field, Gabrielle and her team would reserve them on the outfield so we don't have to be impacted in the infield area. So Pacific Park was on schedule this year, and staff went in, started adding, they had done their aerification, start adding seed and fertilizer throughout the entire infield and outfield. It does take a little bit of an effort. It's a bit of a challenge. You saw Commissioner President Star Reagan mentioned the holes or whatnot that we experienced on fields. Soccer does that to grass, and we've done a report to this commission in the past about the damage of soccer to turf. And not only does it do that damage, it continues to degrade some of the turf areas. So this is required. If we're able to shut down the fields, we'll do this on an annual basis. And this is a current picture of what the field looks like as of today. I believe this field will be open to the public in February. We will be turning it back over to CIVOG at Pacific Community Center so that the teams can start using this facility. Following this project, we, of course, the T-ball fields. This was not a quick project. This one took several months in planning and design and coordination with contractors as well as in-house staff. The T-ball field, as you know, was just a turf area in the location adjacent to an existing official Little League field. And we went in and removed existing fencing. And the first step is to remove the existing grass, which is by way of stripping. This equipment is heavy equipment that you drive. It strips the turf, the top layer of turf. And then we use it at other facilities because it becomes more of a mulch. Recycling. We'll have a truck that drives adjacent to the stripper, and then the stripper will take all of the grass off, about an inch or so, an inch and a half of grass and some soil that gets mixed in. After all the soil is removed, we start looking at designing the irrigation. This is the field completely removed of all of the grass, initial existing grass. We had it fenced off to avoid the rogue soccer players that we get at this facility. And once we do construction, it's always best to keep people off because there may be some holes and trenches that we've dug to do the irrigation, and we don't want anybody getting injured. And then the trenching starts for the irrigation. This was a complete overhaul of what the irrigation was. The fact that we didn't have a field, and the fact that we're going to have an infield and the brick dust area for the play in the infield, it could require the overhaul of the entire existing irrigation system, which also required the main line coming into the facility to be adjusted and changed. So the design, as you can see, the little arc area over there, do two separate irrigation to sprinklers. One is going to irrigate the turf area. The other was going to irrigate the infield area. Trenching continued on for some time, and our crews went in to get the irrigation lines laid. Now, the irrigation at this facility uses recycled water. As you can see, either irrigation purple pipes and or if they have the larger pipes, existing pipes that we use, we've been approved and is processed. We use what you see that there, the purple tape. So every time you dig, you will notice that it is purple, which means it is recycled water. It required teeing off existing 2-inch main lines. It's a bit of a challenge, but our staff, as skilled as they are and dedicated, they got through getting done the entire irrigation, new valves, new sprinklers, and a complete new layout. And what we've done is this process, we take this advantage to actually move all of the valves and shift them away from the play area outside of the field zone. Hence, you saw what they were installing were on the other side of the fence of the field. And the markings, you see the flags. After the irrigation was completed, we hired a contractor to come and do our laser grading. What they'll come is they'll dig, they'll trench, they'll turn the soil over, they'll grind, and then they'll level it using specialized laser equipment so that the field gets the shape that you notice, more of a tabletop, nice, smooth finish. After completion of that, we will get another company, a vendor, sod installation. They'll come in and lay the sod. This is the field prep and ready to go for sod at this point. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures of the sod installation. We skipped taking pictures of that. This, you see the backstop that was installed for the new field of play. And after the backstop was installed, we hired a contractor to install the fencing that went on the sides to protect the kids as they would be sitting on the outside of the fence for their benches. You see the holes they installed the fencing, and we will be looking at expanding this fencing and speaking with the users, likely by another 20 feet to provide more room for parents if they want to sit on the opposite side and watch the games and or the practices. And this is the completed fence after installation. And we really wanted to not allow the grass to grow all the way up to the fence. We packed it in with decomposed granite. This way, if the grass grows onto the fence line, requires a lot more trimming and maintenance. And this would keep it a little more manageable, more sustainable. And of course, we need to have an area for a store booth. We need to have an area for tables, the benches, as well as equipment shed for the users. And that's what these little segments were. Staff went in, excavated, they framed it, they had it ready completely. The one area where we have the equipment shed, we're able to place because we had the equipment shed. So staff went in, prepped it for the appropriate materials, concrete, and have it leveled. Final fine touches for the little shed to be installed. Here's a complete finish of the concrete pad. The two areas during the opening, if the commissioners were there, realized that we had it ready to go, but the benches were not able to be installed because we realized the benches actually arrived last week on Friday. We were notified that the benches actually arrived. Today, as a matter of fact, given that everything was already set to go and ready, our staff went and started the installation of the benches for the players. So if you do visit the next time, you should actually see the benches in place at this field. Pause for a second. And here's the completed picture of the field from one perspective, one angle. And of course, this was taken on Saturday before the ribbon cutting. Verdugo Community Garden, we've talked about this project, and this project is another one that we've done in phases. As you may recall, initially, it is a 15,520 square foot lot. It had 36 plots. They were varied sizes. Their conditions were, not to our standards. People would construct and allow it to grow unattended and unkept, looked very unkept. And so for the safety public, with commission's direction, we went in and we cleared it all out, all the debris. We manufactured these boxes using our in-house staff and placed them. We made the area DG. We actually saved about 7,500 to 8,000 square feet of space that we're going to give back to the park as far as green space. This was the completed portion of the boxes. And then we installed the fencing to separate the park from the community garden. Similarly, in not allowing the turf to grow all the way up to the fence line, we packed DG on the outside, about a foot or so away from the fence, and throughout the perimeter. And then once the fencing was installed, we're ready to install the shade structure. And this purpose today is to show you the shade structure installation. The shade structure was designed and built by our staff. They went in, dug the footings, put in the bases, and then this was completed by our staff in-house. And the last thing is we actually put a shade cover on top to allow the individuals, the gardeners, to be able to have some shade at this facility as they are gathering and or getting some rest from their gardening duties. That is the conclusion of my project. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. We are currently working on a number of projects. We are right now at Tukmajan, getting ready for the March opening. We are doing some landscape enhancements throughout the perimeter of the barn, and some, past the barn, some of the trails as well. That concludes my presentation, President Sardarbagian.
Thank you, Coco.
President Sardarbagian, members of the commission, I have one announcement to make. In regards to community meetings, we are going to have a community meeting February 9th. We'll be finalizing the flyer this coming week. It's a community meeting on the life cycle assessment project that we're working on with our consultant. The life cycle assessment will be analyzing the pros and cons of both artificial turf and natural turf. And we will bring that report in hopefully early April to the Parks Commission, as well as Sustainability Commission, and to City Council. So that community meeting will be on February 9th. Please look out for that invitation within the next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one question for Coco. Thank you for your presentation. It is really great to see your progress photos that you shared, just so we can all get an understanding of what goes into maintaining our parks, right? And it's a lot of work, and it's good to share again with the public everything that you do. So thank you and your whole team. For the garden boxes project, I think that was at Verdugo Park, was it?
Yes.
Was there any effort into trying to maintain some of the stuff that you cleared out for that space? I don't know exactly what was there before, but it looks like it is beautiful now. But I just want to hear if anything was maintained there or tried to be repurposed.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Commissioner Alcazar. not much we were able to preserve and reuse there. Most everything was degraded. Most of the fencing were either fallen. People had brought items from their home to prop things up. As you see, their structures were not allowed. The policy that was adopted by this commission for what community gardens should be like, what should be planted, what should not be planted. We drafted rules and regulations and that, and went through commission and commission's approval. And no trees, no ivies that'll grow. Everybody should have their own little spot to be able to maintain. By this process, we were able to increase the plots from 36 to 50, so additional gardeners will be able to get a little plot, albeit it is a 4x8 little area. Plenty of room still to grow vegetables and make yourself a nice little salad. So nothing was preservable from that. And the fact that by the time we looked at closing the community garden down and doing the renovation, out of the 36 plus, they were only about 5, maybe 6 active gardeners. The rest of them had basically just given up on it and walked away. It had become haven for activities we don't want. It had become a haven for rodents that we really don't want for health reasons and safety reasons. So we looked at all options and found the best approach was to demolish the entire thing, start from scratch, and then develop these boxes, which became the norm over at Maryland Mini Park. The question I thought you would ask is, well, what do we do now that it is ready? And we, again, Commission adopted a procedure for assigning the plots specifically to Maryland Mini Park, because Maryland Mini Park does have these plots, and we didn't have a process. We waited a little more for COVID to settle down. We can hold a community meeting, invite the community adjacent to the park, and then identify who would be interested and do a lottery pick to make those assignments. Because we only have 12 plots over at Maryland. We will come back to commission to get your feedback on how you want us to look at Verdugo. Palmer Park currently has 50 plots, and Palmer Park, all 50 have been assigned. New policy dictates that individuals get 5-year terms. So our intent for Palmer has been, once we get the contract in place and we start reassigning, we will reassign those 50 plots to the 50 individuals that already hold their plots on a 5-year term, and then revisit it after 5 years based on the approved process. If there are people on the waiting list, they will get first dibs on the existing 50 plots. And then the individuals who currently hold plots will go into the lottery to be able to get assignments. We're considering something similar at Verdugo. Verdugo, we will call back the 6 individuals that are active, give them option as first rights to their plots. And then the remaining, we are going to open up to the community. And that's the question we want to come back ultimately back to commission, whether commission wants us to use individuals from, let's say, the Maryland lottery system, that they want a plot, but they don't have a plot. Should we consider opening Verdugo to them? And that's a conversation we'd like to have, see what your feedback is on that in the coming months as we start moving forward. And as for Maryland, likely the first step, we already have some draft of a flyer. The concept was we'll draft a flyer, send it to 1/8 radius mile of the park to the residents. If anybody's interested, they'll submit a card, let us know I'm interested. Those are the individuals we call to a meeting, explain the rules and regulations. And if they're still interested, we will put them in a drawing and literally do a pick a name from a hat type of a drawing to assign randomly the plots. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you for elaborating. And I'm sure the excuse me, the renovations will invite more activity to those gardens again.
Any other comments or questions?
I did just want to sort of a point of clarification to agenda item 6. Yes, 6. Because you know, this is my second commission meeting. I just wanted to make sure the order of operations that we said there with moving and approving that item was correct. I wanted to make sure that it was approved as alternative 2, which would be with the direction that I shared of including the anti-discriminatory policies within that document, as well as language about the right for the city to cancel or terminate a contract if the organization no longer is eligible as an approved group status. Just wanted to clarify.
President Sardarbegian, members of the commission, that is a very good point. Generally, Commissioner Alcazar, we would ask for general direction from the majority of the commission to make changes to the policy and make sure that the direction one commissioner is providing is in line with what the other commissioners are requesting. And I apologize for not asking for that clarification in this meeting, but I think it was probably because we felt those were really good suggestions and wanted to include it, even if it was administratively. So yes, we will definitely include your suggested recommended changes as part of the final policy. We'll make sure that those are incorporated in the final policy. But generally, just as a point of clarification, because you asked, we would ask for that information to be verbalized into the motion so that it is picked up. But yes, in relation to this, we will make those recommended additions to the policy. As a general rule, we don't bring back the policy again, unless it's being asked to. So normally, like for the next meeting, we wouldn't bring back the policy unless there was no direction given to proceed with approval. So if there were some changes and you wanted to see it back again as a commission, we would bring it back. But if there's just minor changes and additions like you recommended, we would just incorporate those into the policy and just make it final. And just as a way of notifying the commission, there is language in the policy that does say that staff could make changes administratively in general. For the most part, I think we tend to bring back a report to commission with major changes. Like if there are minor changes here and there, we might not bring a report, but if there are major changes where we think, either it might create, there might be questions from the groups or politically, it might be a hot topic, we'll definitely bring it back. But generally, we do have the authority to make administrative changes to the policy.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
President Sardarbegian, if there are no other comments or questions, you don't have any other items, you can proceed with adjourning.
Well, it's my first official meeting, so I'd like to officially adjourn this meeting at 4:09 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.